New Mexico, Real Estate 6 PG 61. Your Unit 5 Other Matters Affecting Real Estate Transactions and Interval Estate Non-Freehold Interest ends after a certain period. An interval estate is a leasehold tenancy for years and will revert at some future time. Hove 61, for example, N has a lease giving her the right to occupy a unit for 3 weeks of each year for the next 25 years. At the end of the lease, Anne has nothing. She has an interval estate. A time span estate freehold interest will not end after a certain period of time. It is permanent. A time span owner has fee simple title. For example, Beth owns an undivided interest in fee simple in a unit and she has a right to occupy the unit for 3 weeks of each year forever. Beth has a time span estate. Discrimination. 2 major federal laws govern fair housing in the United States. The first and oldest is the Greater Than Civil Rights Act of 1866, which prohibits discrimination based on race only. The second is the 1968 Federal Fair Housing Act, as amended. 1968 Federal Fair Housing Act. The Federal Fair Housing Act was enacted into law as Title 8 of the Civil Rights Act of 1968. The purpose of the Federal Fair Housing Act is to provide for fair housing throughout the United States. There are key differences between this new act and the original one of 1866. The 1866 Act prohibits discrimination based on race only. The Civil Rights Act of 1866 refers to all real estate, unlike the 1968 Federal Fair Housing Act, which covers only residential property. There are no exceptions to the 1866 Act, but there are to the 1968 Act ob Ordinance. The 1968 Act, as amended, goes further than the older one by making illegal any discrimination in connection with the sale or rental of most housing and vacant land offered for residential use. When such discrimination is based on race, color, religion, or national origin. Sex was added as an amendment in the 1970s. Lohman Pay his 1988 Fair Housing Amendment to the 1968 Act. 1988 Amendment provides that rental or sale of real property cannot be denied because of familial status, families with children, or against the handicapped, physical and mental. The Handicap Amendment requires that owners allow tenants to modify living quarters to accommodate a disability, but places the financial responsibility on the tenant, not the owner. The act is now called the Fair Housing Act of 1968, as amended. Oestrifation complaints. A complaint may be filed with HUD within 1 year of an alleged discriminatory act. HUD first will attempt to reconcile the complaint. If reconciliation is unsuccessful, HUD could rake the complaint to an administrative law judge, who could impose fines up to $11,000 for the first offense, $27,500 for a second violation within 5 years, and $55,000 for further violations within 7 years. Fachi ho idinit loyan into Los Bay Unit 5.